I chimed in halfway on the PFL versus Bellator pay-per-view press conference, which took place in Florida at the Hard Rock Cafe. But the event is going to take place February 24th, 2024 in Riyadh, just 1 week prior to the Tyson Fury versus Usyk fight. So why is this significant? I gotta tell you that in a world where sometimes we are starving for MMA, not that it's not out there, we literally have a UFC event every week. That isn't the problem. The issue is sometimes the quality of the cards. And although this particular PFL versus Bellator card, in the eyes of the hardcore, is somewhat pay-per-view worthy, in the eyes of the casuals, it's not so pay-per-view worthy because of the fact that, let's just be honest, a lot of these guys are not proven pay-per-view stars because PFL and Bellator did not have that type of platform, which again shows you not only the supremacy of the UFC in terms of their marketing and promotional value, but also the fact that they are monopolizing the game in ways that, once again, when you are an MMA content creator like myself, guess what you're doing? Are you really covering all MMA fights? I try to, but I'll be honest with you, the only ones that I'm compelled to really covering are the UFC. MMA Guru will tell you the same thing. Tracy MMA will tell you the same thing. Jesse on Fire literally only talks about the UFC. And if he's not talking about boxing like your good old boy here, guess what? He's talking about boxing that involves a UFC fighter. So it's a UFC event nonetheless. Take a look at this card. You got Kelly DeSantis taking on Clarissa Shields for the women's 155 division. That's the first fight. Okay? And then the other fights, you have Thiago Santos taking on Yoel Romero, and then you have Ryan Bader taking on Ferreira, which is one of the top heavyweights in the PFL right now, probably one of the best heavyweights in the world. You just don't know it because he fights at a PFL. Ryan Bader, been a long-time UFC vet, now coming in as the Bellator champion, now taking on the lineal PFL champion. And these two guys really have a lot to prove in terms of trying to get Francis Ngannou out of his boxing gloves and into his 4-ounce gloves to fight MMA once and for all. Because he did sign to an MMA organization, but that isn't what we're seeing, is it? What we're seeing is him making his money in the world of boxing as he should. Then you got in this card, AJ McKee. Who is he fighting? Let's take a look at who he's fighting here. He is fighting Clay Collard. That's a good fight. And then I mentioned Thiago Santos and Yoel Romero. After that, who do you have else? You have Bruno Capozella taking on Vadim Nemkov. A heavyweight fight. What else you got after that? You got a catchweight fight at 182 pounds. Ray Cooper taking on Jason Jackson. I believe Ray Cooper must have been a replacement because somebody else was slated to fight in that card. But here we are. Ray Cooper, big-time staple of the PFL division, and now taking on Jackson, who is a Bellator champion. So who else do we have here? Obviously, yeah, Ryan Bader. So I had mentioned basically almost all the fights that are involved in this card. How about this? In the 145 division, Jesus Pinedo taking on Patricio Pitbull. Champion versus champion. Once again. So, who else do we have here? Let's see. Impa Kasangai taking on Johnny Eblen. How could I forget this? A middleweight bout. Obviously, Impa Sakai won it in the 185 division, or is it the 20? I thought he won it in the 205 division. Nonetheless, that's the guy that got knocked out by Joaquin Buckley where that kick went viral, that kick where he was holding him by the feet when he caught him, and then Joaquin came back with a spinning back kick as he was holding his kick, almost ready to take him down for a single leg. So it was a viral knockout, and he was the unfortunate receiving end of that. Now here he is. So I'm going to explain to you guys why this particular fight is really important. Because like I said, when we cover MMA, really, the majority of the time we're covering the UFC. Now, if you are the PFL and Bellator and you do cards like this on a continuous basis, and not only that, on a consistent basis, I think the UFC can have a competition in its hands. Not a direct rival where they are adjacent to each other like this, but at least a competitor in that end. A competitor that, well, you know what, can fill up those voided Saturday nights to where the UFC doesn't have really any good fights going on. Or like this weekend, they're not going to have any UFC fights this weekend. Why? Because, like you guys know, they are owned by the WWE. So now they're under the same company. They're not going to compete with each other on the same weekend with a big WWE card such as the Royal Rumble. Not only a big WWE card, but obviously a card that has been a long-standing tradition in the company's history, which is the Royal Rumble for the WWE. So this is what PFL can offer. 1 week prior to that, it's going to be the Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk fight. And then the Saudis come back with a big MMA card for the PFL, but also wanting to work with the UFC and double dipping their toes in both companies to benefit mixed martial arts and combat sports as a total. So once again, I think that this is one of the reasons to say that we are living under the best era of combat sports, and it just keeps getting better and better. Not just for the UFC, but also for Bellator and PFL, but not just for MMA, but also for boxing and across all popular combat sports. The only unfortunate thing is that kickboxing is not up there, but not so fast. What if the Saudis decide they want to invest in ONE FC? And what is great about ONE FC, they aren't just a mixed martial arts company. They also do all types of fights, including grappling, Muay Thai, 4-ounce gloves in a cage, and maybe even boxing in a cage, or maybe even holding a boxing event, just like what Ryzen FC does, which, by the way, is another organization that could also benefit from the Saudis if they decided to put their hands in that door in Japan. But either way, you gotta like this as an MMA fan. Now, if you are a die-hard UFC fan and you don't like any other types of MMA, I think you're missing out. But if you're a hardcore fan, you could definitely appreciate this. You would love this because you think to yourself, you know what? Another great Saturday night to look forward to? Sign me up. Just like I want you guys to sign up and like and subscribe to the channel. Share, like, tell a friend to tell a friend, and you guys know the rest. Hit me up. See you guys soon.